Hi everyone. So today I'm going to be showing you how to replace the starter on a 1994 Ducati Supersport 900. So let's go ahead and get started. So to start off, you'll need a new starter. Essentially, the reason I know that I need a new starter is because when I crank over or push the start button, I can hear the starter and feel it moving and spinning. However, this part is supposed to extend out so it catches onto the crank and cranks the engine over. So I can feel the starter spinning, however the engine is not cranking over, which means this is either stuck in there or something's gone wrong, and so I need to open it up and replace this. And since it's a decent project to do all this, I figured I might as well just replace the starter rather than tear it all apart, try to fix it, potentially get it fixed, and then have it do the same thing in 1,000 miles or something. So to get started, some of the first things you want to do, you want to disconnect the battery, which is under the tank. You can check my other videos on my Ducati to see how to do that. And then you're going to want to drain the engine oil. And it's probably a good time as well to replace the oil filter. But you will replace the engine oil. Basically, you'll pop this open and drain it out. So go ahead and do that first to get started on this project. So this is pretty obnoxious to set up so that you can drain the oil. You either need one of those pan oil things that it's an open pan and it's just circular, or you got to figure out some kind of contraption. What I ended up doing was I locked the wheel in with one of those. I mean, if you want to spend, I think they're $30 at Harbor Freight or something for one of those. So that locked the front wheel in, and then I used a bottle jack onto the A-arm. So you have a cross member beam right there for the A-arm that you can jack it up on. And then I was able to get my oil pan out from underneath it. So that bolt right there is a 10 millimeter Allen wrench. So go ahead and loosen that, and it's going to drain all of the oil out. It is unfortunately most likely going to go onto your exhaust pipe there, so you want to clean that really well so you're not burning the oil once you're all done with all this. So go ahead and loosen that bolt and drain all of the oil out of your Ducati. So I've kind of done a couple of things after I drain the oil that you'll need to do in order to get this half of the engine case off. Because frustratingly enough, there's the starter right there, has one bolt out here, and the other one or two are inside the engine. So, very poorly designed, but you have to get this entire half of the engine case off. So, what I did was I went around and took all of these bolts off. They are they're a 5 millimeter Allen wrench, and you can kind of see all of the ones that I did. So this was my hydraulic clutch right here. There were 3 bolts, and then there's one on the inside there. There's one here, and here, and then here, there, up there, back there, there, the back one for the starter, here. You can't quite see it, but there's one there, there's another one here, here, and here. And then that leaves you back up to here into the hydraulic clutch. You're also going to need to remove the shift linkage here. So you're going to want to mark, I did, basically on where this lines up so that you have it lined up back correctly once you put it all back together. So go ahead and do all that. Next, you're going to need to get this is the alternator cover off, and I am having an extremely hard time with these flatheads. So I put some WD-40 on them, and then I'm going to use an impact driver, and I'll let you know how that goes, because you have to get those off so that you can use a puller to get the entire engine case off. So go ahead and do all those things next. Alright, so I finally got it. It was a real pain in the butt. What I ended up doing, that impact wrench actually didn't do anything. But the bit was very useful. It's a gigantic bit because you really don't want to strip this, which I think I came pretty close to on this one. But you see how it pretty much takes up the entire screw there. So anyways, I was finally able to get it loose. I just attached it to a ratchet, pushed in really hard while pushing down, and I was able to loosen this one. I just about stripped this left one, and so rather than risking stripping it the rest of the way, because I think I partially did, you can kind of see, I took a rubber mallet after I got the one side off, and I just tapped it up until I was able to, it just barely loosened up, and then I was able to unscrew it, and now this is loose. So go ahead and do that next. I also removed, I believe they're just oil lines here to help with the oil flow with the oil pump. So go ahead and loosen those. They were little 14 millimeter bolts for me. Mine almost look aftermarket, but you might have similar ones. So go ahead and loosen those as well. All right, so with that undone, you can see I'm starting to get the case off. I went to Ace. I just took that one of those little screws in and measured out so that I could get bolts that fit perfectly. These are 6 millimeter coarse metric, obviously. I think I got the 50 millimeter ones in length. And basically, I intended to put them on and then use one of these pullers and, essentially like this, and screw this down until it came out and put some washers there because this is just a small bolt. You're going to need washers to fit in here. Was my original intention, but basically I screwed these in and gave a quick tug and it started to pop off. So I would put these on and try that before wasting time and energy and money going to get one of these. Unless you already have one, then obviously no harm, no foul on that. As I'm trying to get it off, it is getting stuck on all of this wiring, particularly right here onto the kickstand. And so I'm going to end up taking the kickstand off from these two bolts right here. They're 6 millimeter Allen. So go ahead and take those off next. So it took quite a bit of finagling, but I, for the life of me, could not get that kickstand off, those two bolts there. It kept slipping, and I didn't, probably came pretty close to stripping them, so I didn't want to do that. So what I did instead was I have this special spring pulling tool. It was like $10 at AutoZone. You can use screwdrivers and pliers and stuff, but it just is so much easier with this tool. So you have the springs here. This was on here. Yeah, so anyways, it was on there like that, obviously. And then the springs were connected onto here. There's two, an inner one and an outer one, and I just undid those and was finally able to work that cover off. It's still going to be connected by some wiring, so you want something to hold it up. You're definitely going to want to clean all of that really well. But you can finally see the starter bolts. So right there is one of them, and then you have a little window here that you're going to have to rotate it around. So you're going to have to rotate it around and to reveal that other bolt. So you go ahead and take those off to finally get the starter off. So you can see I rotated that gear. It only goes counterclockwise. Takes a little 5 millimeter Allen wrench in the gear window there, and then there's that one up there that needs to be taken off. So go ahead and take those off. Before you do that, though, you might want to undo the wiring on the other side. So on the right side of the bike, here's the starter. You just pull that little boot back, and it's just a little 10 millimeter bolt there that you're going to loosen, and that's the electric for it. So go ahead and loosen that up, and then go ahead and take out those Allen screws from inside the engine cover. So after putting the new starter on, I don't know, you probably can't see it because of the lighting, but I got a new gasket. It's blue, red and blue, I guess, huh? Anyways, this is kind of hard to get back on. You kind of have to finagle it back on. So you'll put the gasket on. Luckily, it goes through the clutch bar right here. And then there's some little pieces that kind of stick out to help hold it in place as you're putting the engine case back on. Again, really hard is the shifter to finagle it past that and get it on. So just kind of work with it to get it back on. I ended up taking a rubber mallet and just especially tapping around here to just kind of get it on until it's tight, and then I kind of tapped around everywhere to get it on. So then from here, you're obviously going to just replace everything and put it all back where it was, and don't forget to refill the oil. And so I will go ahead and do that process, and I will come up with any tips at the end of this before I wrap up in case anything pops up before I'm done. Alright, so I just went through, tightened all of the bolts, went around, put everything back on, put the springs back on, put my shifter back on, put the clutch back on, that plastic piece. I put everything back on, tighten it down. I couldn't really find any torque specs, so I put it about as tight as I could get it without feeling like I was going to strip it. So about as tight as when I pulled them off. I don't really have any tips or tricks other than, as I mentioned before, how to put that engine case on, tapping it with the hammer. I kind of tried to do it a star pattern, similar to how you do a tire, so that I didn't bend any of this because this all needs to be perfectly flat. Put it all back together, put the battery on, and it cranked over. So my starter is actually working now. I haven't started it up because I haven't put all the oil in, but just so that you know, the oil that you are going to put in, I'll show you on this side. If you probably can't really read it super well, but it says 4T Super Racing Oil only for the oil. So if you can get a hold of that, or my book here says that you can use Shell Advance Ultra 4 or any equivalent that's higher than SE, SF, FG, or a higher rating. It needs to be 10W40, as you can see here. Since this is a 900, I'll use approximately 3.5 liters. And, you know, you obviously need to put that in, crank it over, and check it on your oil sight over here on the right side of the bike. So it's also going to be a very similar procedure. You can see I have a 97 Ducati Monster 750. You can see it's a very similar engine case there to what I pulled off here. So it's going to be very similar. This is just very specific for my 900. Anyways, that is how you pull off the engine case on the left side of a 1994 Ducati Supersport 900, as well as replace the starter on it. So anyways, hopefully this was helpful, and thanks for watching.